tried going up the slopes of the valley once we dug ourselves out in the morning and the snow had kind of backed off. We tried going through the valley, we tried going over the slope, and we just weren't able to move. It was physically impossible to move through that depth of the snow. And the only way for us to get out of the steep foot of valley into a kind of wider open area, which we knew was a bit further down according to the map we had, was to actually physically get into the river and walk through the river, which was
sub-zero temperatures in the air, let alone the river, which the only reason it wasn't, everything was frozen, even the river, it was like a slush puppy, was purely just because it was moving, a bit in the middle.
So yeah, I mean, and that was extremely difficult. It was just extremely cold, very, very cold, and just having to kind of know that we had to get into the river to get out, but that we wouldn't be able to do it for more than kind of half an hour to an hour, just because our kind of limbs would stop working basically because it was so cold. But we just had to do it. And Rosie, she was amazing. She just kind of went for it.
But I mean, he pays that down a little bit. Like for me, we had our packs on as well, so we had all our food and tents and everything. So Luke had about almost 30 kgs on his back, and I had the food bag, so I'd eaten most of the food, and I only had about 7 kilos. And even as we got into the river and I was shaking, I couldn't keep up with Luke, even though he had 30 kilos on his back. So we're sort of walking through the river trying not to stumble, and he just said, "Quick, give me a bag," and he grabbed my bag and threw it over his head. So now he's got like 37 kilos on his head, and I'm still struggling to keep up with his speed, trying to walk through this frozen river.
I'm going to actually ask you to just keep telling the story, because this is phenomenal. So what happened next?
Fortunately for us, we actually made it out of that very steep section. I mean, Rosie was saying, like, I can't, feet were just physically stinging and burning. I mean, I surf a lot, so I think I'm more used to the cold water temperatures here in Cape Town, but just physically, we knew we couldn't go for long, and just as she was saying, like, I can't go on anymore, the valley opened up slightly, and we managed to kind of climb through these deep snow drifts on the banks of the river, kind of make our way through the snow drifts, and out onto a bit of higher ground on a ridge where the wind had blown the snow off the ridge, and we were able to kind of pitch our tent in much thinner snow. And by that point, thank goodness, the weather was starting to lift, the clouds were lifting, and there were some kind of patches of blue sky opening up. So even though we'd only been going for about an hour and a half, 2 hours that day, we were just physically freezing. We pitched the tent, just got into it and got warm again. And then the sun, unfortunately, that afternoon came out and allowed us to kind of warm up a bit better and dry some of our stuff off, a lot of our wet gear, because the wet gear was a huge concern, because at night it would freeze solid. So you're trying to put on frozen clothes.
And that's the, the import of actually getting into a river. It's above 4,000 meters, so there's no trees. There's no way to light a fire. There's actually, and if it's not overcast, there's no way to dry your clothes. And wet clothes, that means, death. So you need to keep dry. So getting into the river was like a complete last resort to try and get out of there. And so luckily, we were able to dry it in the tent over the course of that day.
And is this day 5 in the snow?
No, this is day 2.
My goodness.
So it's day 2, and we just managed to get out of the valley.
Yeah.
Wet clothes, but managed to get out into this, incredible, like now it's like a bit of blue sky and this white, amazing landscape. So that was the first sort of point at which I was able to I wasn't relaxed, but was able to just not be thinking every second, this could be it.